Laura Vann is the designer and founder behind her namesake brand, a Demi-Fine Jewellery line of vintage-inspired casual jewels presented in a modern context. Right from the start, Laura had a crystal clear vision of what she wanted her business to be and how she wanted it to look, essentially building a brand universe. This awareness of the importance of the context the jewellery is presented in, as well as a constant focus on what the customer wants, has led to the exponential growth of the business. And the brand is now stocked in London's Fortnum Mason, Harvey Nichols, Liberty and Selfridges. In this episode, we talk about how she has evolved the business into selling both demi-fine and fine jewellery and diamonds, the power of personal collaborations and in-person events over social ad spend, and why you need to create designs that are hard to copy, some of the best advice she's ever been given. Laura Vann, welcome to the Gold Dust Podcast. Hello, Laura Vann.
Hello.
Welcome to the Gold Dust Podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, it's so great. And for those who know me, Laura Vann is my go-to demi-fine jewellery brand of choice. And with Christmas coming up, I am literally recommending it to loads of people and wearing pieces.
I did spot this. I was like, are these hers? Yeah, they're so cute.
I wear them all the time. I'm a big fan. So I'd really like to start with your origin story. I love an origin story. And I think that yours is really interesting as well. So you founded your business back in 2014. Is that right?
Yeah, I think actually early. I think 2013. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So 12 years ago. And you founded it alongside your father, who was already running his own separate, very successful jewelry business and had done so for many years. So how did you decide to start working alongside him?
My dad's business, the business that I joined is very different to the business that we have today. And it's certainly not like, you know, when you like hear about a designer, you're like, who are their parents? Or like, what heiress is she?
Sure.
And my dad's business, some years successful, some years not successful. He had a wholesale jewelry business. And so it was all white label products, nothing branded. So, he might get a big account with like Claire's Accessories or something like that. I am the heiress to the belly bars at Claire's Accessories.
The belly bars.
But, he would get that account and it would last for a year and then they'd move distribution to the US and then it would be back down to having to cut overheads for him or like, take salary cuts for himself. So it was quite a precarious business actually that I joined. And I actually really didn't have any intention of actually joining. I'd gone to uni in London. I'd wanted to get into fashion journalism. I started working at COS, just on the shop floor in Regent Street. And I loved working for COS. I really actually wanted to carry on working and kind of move up to the head office there. But after graduating uni, I couldn't afford to live in London anymore. And obviously trying to get into fashion journalism ain't the best paid grad job going. So I kind of had to move back home because I didn't have the means to live in London. And so I was just helping out my dad's jewelry business day to day. And then I transferred from Regent Street COS to Birmingham and did evening shifts there. Somehow had the energy to do both jobs simultaneously. And I loved the ethos of COS and I loved how they were making timeless products that were well made and affordable. It was like this kind of middle luxury. And, when I was working for my dad, I realized that we had like an amazing platform because as precarious as his kind of business was, what he did have was a brilliant foundation of, great suppliers, the understanding of the fundamentals of how to run a jewelry business. And so I, at that point, realized that we had a good foundation to start a brand that applied that COS ethos to jewelry.
Yeah, but as you say, you're right. It's not like it was a kind of inherited leg up into the industry from a kind of financial point of view or even connections, really. I'm sure his expertise was helpful.
Yeah. zero connection, sadly, unless it's like some guy in the jewelry quarter called John that could fix a pair of broken earrings. I think it's so important to be like really transparent. Like, obviously, I had a brilliant platform in terms of knowing packaging suppliers and, you know, the factory that makes the jewelry for our Demi-Fine offering is the same father-son business that my dad worked with 30 years ago. You know, my dad worked with the father and now I work with the son, and it's the only manufacturer that's ever made our Demi-Fine jewellery. But aside from the kind of manufacturing side of things, there were no connections. And to be honest with you, actually, our brand independently, like the Laura Vann brand, it ran completely independently to my dad's business. He just left me kind of to it, you know, funded the initial collection, which was probably a few £1,000s. But we were profitable from year one because we worked with some sales agents that again were introduced to me by my dad, but equally highs and lows, you know, working with a guy called Barry that's trying to get your product into some random little jewelry
accessories.
Yeah. It wasn't, oh God, it would be brilliant if it was Claire's accessories. It was just random little jewelry stores.
I know that was that you wanted a very different direction, and it seemed like you had a really clear idea of what you wanted to do sort of right from the off. Like you wanted to present, I suppose in a similar way to Cos, you wanted to present your jewelry within a specific kind of context and give it that context, which is essentially brand building.
Yeah, totally. And a world that my dad and, you know, the other people that work alongside my dad, like our financial director, Graham, have zero experience of, and up until recently had zero appreciation of. So as much as, it was brilliant to kind of have this kind of infrastructure, I also spent so many years back and forth, push and pulling, trying to kind of like convince them of this new way of doing things. And often actually Graham says, like, you know, this is a brand new business. Like, this isn't a business that was pre-existing. We've started from scratch because actually we're doing something very different. You know, my dad was wholesaling, and actually what we've built is a brand.
So you went for that. Did you feel that there was a gap in the market for kind of well-priced, design-led, affordable jewelry?
I think so, yeah. I think, you know, when I was thinking about what I loved about Cos and what I felt that kind of like filled in the market that was missing, it was this timeless, like seasonless product in clothing. But when I looked at their jewelry, it didn't kind of reflect that timelessness.
No, it's very directional, isn't it, their jewelry?
Yeah, very bold, very architectural. And for me, timeless jewelry is something that, you know, looks inherited from, you know, generations before you and something that you could pass on to the next generation. It's complicated, it's intricate. And, you know, with our origins, you know, my dad's jewelry business was founded in the Jewelry Quarter in Birmingham. And today, our offices are based in North Birmingham. We're in the Jewelry Quarter all of the time for our bespoke. I'm still exposed to that really traditional style of jewelry where craftsmanship is so intricate and so complicated. You know, when things were made by hand and stones were cut by hand. And it's that complexity of old jewelry that I feel is so timeless.
Would you, or could you please explain to those who don't know the Laura Vann brand what your jewelry looks like?
When I was thinking about kind of like what is timeless jewelry to me, like I said, it's that kind of complexity and intricate design style. And I wanted to look at something like I looked back through kind of like the jewelry archives at styles of jewelry that reemerged throughout jewelry history and still felt relevant. And for me, it's that kind of Art Deco design. I remember kind of seeing Mary Kate Olsen, and she was like head to toe in the row, super kind of simple, you know, that pared back Scandi style of clothing, which I obviously really loved. And then she just had this big fat Cartier target ring on her engagement finger. And, you know, that ring for me was just like this epitome of design intricacy with like different color stones, sapphires, all hand cut. And then, I think it had like a kind of yellow diamond or some kind of like smoky kind of brown diamonds. And I love that juxtaposition. And so, I thought to myself, gosh, if that is still so relevant when you pair it, and it looks so effortless and chic when you pair it with something quite contemporary in terms of clothing, that's never going to go out of style. And so I've really like adopted this Art Deco style, but also kind of making it modern by applying it to those contemporary trends, especially if they're rooted in history. Like, for example, enamel is something that was really prevalent in the Art Deco period. So when that enamel trend came around a couple of years ago, we really embraced that because it's still timeless. Similarly, cord jewelry, we will kind of apply a heavily embellished stone set pendant to a cord necklace, because actually Cartier did cord, and they had these gorgeous diamond pendants set against something quite casual like a cord necklace. So, a lot of our pieces feature hand cut, baguette cut stones. We play with color. One of our most iconic rings, are you wearing it actually? Is the olive ring?
I am wearing
it.
Yes.
So that's like a perfect example.
So
the central stone is a white topaz, round, brilliant cuts, bezel set, and then you've got channel set, green baguette cut stones. You've got a mixture of yellow gold and rhodium plating in there. You've got claw setting. You've got like a variety of color, a variety of setting. And that's that complexity that I think defines our signature style.
And the way that you present it as well has become so much a part of your brand. So I feel like you're presenting this vintage inspired, deco inspired jewelry, but in a really modern context, which I really liked about your brand when I first came across it, 12 years ago, whenever it was, because it was just, I hadn't seen that before. It was just it was quite niche, but also just felt really easy. It was accessible. It felt accessible in a way that I think vintage style jewelry can often, you would feel it only applies to some kind of style or a type of person that would wear that style. But I feel like you've really broadened out the scope of wearability because you present it consistently in this really fresh, modern context.
I don't really know what it is that defines that. I think I just inside of me have this kind of intrinsic, I like this, I don't like this. It feels very kind of like natural to me, but then also often I do worry that like, is there consistency throughout our collection? Because there's no set strategy to it, if that makes sense, of like, what I think encapsulates that modern vintage. But, when I speak to lovely people like yourself and you're like, no, it's so clear. It
is really clear. And I think that's your design instinct coming out. So, what you love and what you're inspired by from a design perspective. Paired with your own kind of sense of taste and your sensibilities and your own aesthetic, which is obviously, the modern dressing in a modern way. You're not dressing like an old granny. You're
not all the time. Today,
not all the time. But I think that it's that juxtaposition and that kind of contrast, which I really like. It also ties in really nicely to this quote that I found when I was doing my research for today, that I'm actually going to read aloud to you because I think it's really interesting. So you said,
oh God,
as I see it, there are three kinds of people in the jewelry industry. There are those who reject the mainstream, choosing voluntary poverty in the name of perfecting their craft, the starving artists. Then you have those aiming for financial supremacy because at heart they are business people, the magnates. And then you have the hybrid. And the hybrid, you say, has a difficult task. They want to sell out without selling out. They walk a tightrope between fashion and finance that could tip any second, and before they know it, creating a collection mutates into building a brand. I am, by chance, a hybrid. Which is such a good quote.
Oh my God.
Such an astute observation as well.
It must be such an old quote.
It is an old quote.
I'll stand by it, but...
You definitely should, because I think it's so interesting because it also encapsulates the style of your jewelry, that balance between one thing and another, creating in this kind of hybrid model, which is really interesting. And what you said also about wanting to sell out, as in selling all your pieces without selling out and going too far. Do you think this is something that more new jewelers need to think about, finding that balance?
I think possibly. I mean, to be honest, I think my hybrid role is kind of born out of necessity more than I think I'd love to be a starving artist, to be quite honest with you, and design for the joy and the pleasure of it. But I don't have the kind of like luxury really to do that. And so I think a lot of people will kind of fall into that hybrid position because, if you've got bills to pay and if you've got, especially if you've got overheads, like if you start hiring people, you have to make it commercially successful. And, I remember listening actually to, or maybe like reading an interview with the founder of Self Portrait, and he said exactly the same thing.
Really?
His dresses are commercial, and it's because they have to be, because he didn't have the luxury of designing just for the sake of designing. So I don't think there's anything kind of like wrong with any option. And I just think people will fall into that category depending on their circumstance.
I wonder if that's how you were from the start. Perhaps that's what you took from your dad's business knowledge, is that like full on commerciality.
I had him breathing down my throat, being like, like this wasn't a kind of like, my princess who can have whatever you want. Like I had to prove it to him that, this idea that he is kind of, standing by is actually going to be financially successful. And I still have it today. He's kind of like less involved in the business, but every single day, every single week, it's like, what's going on with orders and blah, blah, blah. So I had a huge pressure to make this successful.
Which is obviously a good thing.
Yeah.
Because, like
it's not bad.
It's a business. So you created all these other assets that he probably didn't know what you were spending your money on, in terms of photo shoots, a website, all the packaging. Did you jump on all of that and sort of art direct that, or consider that as very important right from the beginning?
Do you know what? I designed our logo on Microsoft Word.
Microsoft Word.
And I used word art. I didn't do the whole kind of like brand guidelines or anything like this. It was all just done like swiftly. It was obviously done with like care and consideration.
It looked great. Yeah.
But I had no idea that there would be people. I had no money as well to hire a graphic designer to do all of these beautifully polished things for me. Like there's a guy that works next door to us that shot our campaigns and did our like product imagery for like £1.50 an image. And then I learned how to use Photoshop. I mean, God, not anymore. But I learned how to use, I'm like a whiz at Photoshop. I did like an English language degree, like, but I can use Photoshop to edit and retouch, like product images now. Everything was like on a budget. When I say like we made our own money, we made our own money. So we didn't like, it's only actually, we revamped our packaging this year. This is the first time I've ever, and we redid our logo. This is the first time I've ever used a graphic designer.
Oh gosh, that's very impressive.
Well, I don't know.
That's a good 10 years.
Yeah. But like, I think, and it was time. God, it was overdue. But like, and so I've made so many mistakes. I mean, God, like the brand was called V Jewellery to start with.
I remember.
And, that's when like a 22-year-old girl and her dad decide to name a jewelry brand. It was so like corporate. And then, we then tried to trademark it in China, and they were like, yeah, that's not going to fly. Like you can't trademark
a letter of the alphabet.
Exactly. And then we changed it to V by Laura Vann, and that was just a waffle. Like, imagine trying to tell somebody your email address, Laura@VbyLauraVann.com. So that was killer. And then we just like, so the brand has just like evolved and it's grown with me. It's matured with me and I've learned so much along the way, but it certainly wasn't polished to perfection. We just made decisions and did it.
And when you started, did you have a sort of clear idea of, I'm going to have to sell wholesale. Like I want to make a collection and take it to retailers and get wholesale orders straight away. Or were you one of those designers who, sort of made a few pieces, see if anyone bought them? And it took a long time before you took the wholesale leap. Because I know wholesale is a big part of your business.
We were completely wholesale first because it was all I knew. Like my dad is the biggest tech. He still can't use like Excel or like, I still have to help him open a PDF genuinely. And so anything to do with online was like no care, no interest whatsoever. It was just like, get it into stockists. And like I said, the brand started with some of my dad's sales agents just like smashing it around the UK into like tiny jewelers, which we then ended up having to kind of undo because I was like, this isn't right for the brand. But we did trade shows. We did all of those kind of like wholesale avenues. And thankfully, one of the first trade shows that we did was just this random one at the Saatchi Gallery. And it was where Fortnum Mason picked us up.
Ah, great.
And they became like quite an early stockist of ours. And obviously, we're still there with them today and they're now our like best stockists. We've got a shop in shop there and we've got just the most amazing relationship with them. But yeah, that was really fortuitous that, we were at that trade show and the buyers kind of took a chance on us really.
Yeah.
We were very unknown, but it was in those days before however many followers you had on Instagram was the deciding factor, for a buyer to pick you up. And, it was a time where they would just see the product and if they liked it, they would take you on.
It was probably just on the cusp of when all the D2C websites, independent jewelers got their websites and kind of began their D2C journeys. Definitely. So it was just before that, but you were fully embedded in wholesale. You've obviously you've got a lot of incredible, like world-class stockists and retailers. Like what do you think it is about your work that they really like?
It's different. I think that's just what we always get told is just that it's different. We're not just like another brand that's producing, I don't know, plain gold hoops or, a disc pendant or something like that. We've always really stayed true to kind of our design ethos. Another amazing piece of advice I got from my dad was when I was designing the collection, he said, design stone set jewellery because that's what we are experts in. And that is just so hard to replicate. So, when you've got plain polished pieces, if it's a huge commercial success for a brand, you might see it in, H&M or Zara or, a kind of a fashion version of it being replicated. But if they were to try and replicate the olive ring, for example,
it's really hard.
They wouldn't, because they would need to glue the stones in and it would look terrible. So we're quite hard to replicate for a lot of kind of costume jewelry. And then I think also just the design signature is so specific that it just doesn't feel like anybody else. So there's that. And then I also just think, it sells.
The price point's really good.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
The price point is fair. I think people, it's like COS, you don't mind spending that little bit more extra money if you feel like the design is going to last you a long time. It's not going to be a fleeting trend. You feel like the quality is good. The materials that we work with, like white topaz. So I feel, people don't mind paying that slightly elevated price point. And, I think that's it. The kind of proof is in the pudding that, we've been with Fortnum Mason ever since 2014, potentially. So over 10 years now. And the product sells through. I think that's the most important thing. It's one thing to kind of get into a stockist, but actually retaining the stockist is the most important thing. And that means that your product has to be commercial and it has to sell.
The strong design is so important. And I think even more so today when it's just so competitive to get into those kind of stores of that caliber. I think a lot of brands focus on trying to be the best at every single part. So the most sustainable, handmade in the UK, specific types of materials. And I think that what you do is produce such a brilliant design that is really unique. And that's your focus. And I think you said in another interview that I found, you said stockists love to promote British-made products, but they also love short lead times, which I really liked, because that's the kind of magnate archetype, business archetype of your brain working alongside the creativity side again.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would add to that quote now that they also like lower prices. We did a project called the Bling Ring, which you'll know.
I'm going to get onto that.
Yeah. and you know, we have a lot of requests to replicate those rings, and those bespoke rings are made by our British manufacturer. They're 18 karat gold or platinum, and they're made in the Jewellery Quarter. And, you know, because we'd already manufactured this particular bling ring, when we had people asking for kind of replicas of it, we went direct to that manufacturer and said, you know, could you make this for us in silver? We obviously don't usually produce, you know, silver and gold vermeil products with you, but could you give us a quote for it? And their quote just to make it, and this is, you know, complete transparency, was nearly £400.
Right. So a lot higher than
we would want to retail
your overseas manufacturers.
Less than that. So I think, you know, there's just a level of practicality to a lot of these things as well. And I think provided you do your due diligence and work with suppliers that you trust and that you've visited ideally, and that, you know, have the right audits and things in place. God, there's a lot of factories in the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham that I don't think would pass some of the ethical scrutiny that, you know, we put our overseas manufacturer under. So yeah, it's I think it's an interesting topic, that one.
I also think that it's important to keep the price points down, and understanding what your customer actually cares about is also really important. So you're designing for a specific customer, and the price point is very important to them. So you're listening and understanding. Are you led by your retailers, by your stockists? Do they give you insight into, you know, what customers are looking for on those terms?
In terms of price point or in terms of design? Because we've worked with our retailers for such a long time, they actually kind of trust us. There's been products that we've introduced certainly in more like recent collections that have been quite expensive. Like, you know, we don't make any of our heavier chain items, for example, with brass, whereas a lot of Demi-Fine brands, the kind of bigger the item, they then start using brass. Everything that we manufacture has got a sterling silver base. So we brought out, you know, a few necklaces, and they're kind of that 500 plus price point. Retailers take them and try them, and if it doesn't work, you know, they can spit them out and not order them again. But yeah, I think it's, you know, like I said, I think the brand is growing and always like evolving, and we're really lucky to work with retailers that kind of want to test the limits with us and grow and evolve with us. So that's quite nice.
And do you think that the selling at retail, do you think that what kind of edge do you think that has over an online purchase? Because I think there's quite a lot of worry about wholesaling jewellery for new jewellers or people that don't have any experience. But I know that you're a big fan of your wholesale business. It's a huge part of your business.
Don't get me wrong, we don't love with the payment terms all the time.
Yeah, that's difficult.
You know, you do have to kind of manage your cash flow. I would say that good retailers will appreciate when a brand is a new brand. And if you turn around and say, we don't do sale or return, quite often they'll say, okay, you know. So I wouldn't, first of all, like agree to kind of all of the terms straight away. So I think that's kind of really important to note. A lot of these buyers are just normal people that you can have a conversation with. So don't ever be afraid to negotiate with them. Funnily, I've been having a conversation recently, just with regards to kind of paid social, because obviously it's very much a pay to play. Yeah. play game online. And, you know, there are some giants that are backed by billionaires, you know, literal billionaires backing some of these huge players, especially in the Demi-Fine space. And, you know, we're not even in the race with that kind of digital spend. And so for us, actually, our route to market kind of can't be paying Instagram or Meta, like, you know, large sums of money to kind of get our brand under the noses of people. We have to be more strategic than that. And so I think going through that wholesale route and being in retailers, that's a huge route to market for us. You know, we don't spend a single penny on paid ads, not 1 pence.
I know. So I really wanted to talk to you about this because this is really impressive, and it must have been a really brave move. So a couple of years ago, I think, was it maybe 2 years ago, you withdrew from any form of paid advertising. So no Meta ads, Google ads. And that's, I'm guessing, when you realize that you just can't compete with those mega budgets that you just mentioned, from those big brands. And the results were really heartening. I know you posted some stats on your LinkedIn page that showed that after a few months after withdrawing from paid advertising, your sales were up by 826%. Conversion was up by 638%. And your average order value was up 35%, and traffic was down by 73%. I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
What was that kind of instinct to pull all those?
No, we were losing money. We were just losing money. And we were like, what's the point? What's the point in spending money on digital marketer and all these monthly ad spends? We're not making money. So turn it off, like, now. And we did. And I think, like, the important thing to stress is that it wasn't that we turned it off and then we made that amazing kind of jump in revenue. We put that money and that time and that effort into organic marketing and events. The traffic being down was because these ads weren't being served to just hundreds of random people. Like, the right people were seeing what we wanted them to see. It's certainly plateaued now. I think up to the end of September, you know, sales were up by 30% year on year, which is still great with no digital spend at all. I also think it's really important to say, because I had no idea the competition that I was in. And my sister-in-law works for a big Demi-Fine brand, and she kind of gave me an idea. It was her that gave me the figures of what this other Demi-Fine brand was spending on a monthly basis. And it was like hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Wow.
We're not just talking like, you know, when you get like digital marketers approach you and say, oh, you know, like, we can start off on small budgets and it's $2,000 here or whatever like this. And it's also so specific to your industry. If you're selling something like super niche and like there's no competition, then yeah, maybe you can kind of grow. But like, actually the jewelry space is so competitive. And so when I knew those budgets that I was up against, it was just kind of like, and I wish somebody had told me sooner. I think that's just like so kind of painful. But actually, I think once you stop tunnel visioning, like, this is how I have to grow, this is what I have to do, this is what everybody else is doing, it really kind of, I can't remember who it was. I was listening to some podcast, and it was this kind of idea of like, if you are just so focused on this one success and you're not open to other avenues, you don't kind of like open your mind and your heart to kind of other possibilities, then you kind of won't see those possibilities around you. You'll just be so focused on this thing that might not be serving you.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're so good as a founder and a business person in investing in this kind of leap of faith marketing, where, you know, you've created a really exciting offline form of marketing where you do loads of events and talks, and also collaboration is a massive part of your business. The Bling Ring series that you mentioned is a brilliant example of really thinking like outside of those traditional boxes. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the Bling Ring series is?
It actually came after I'd had my first daughter and I was on mat leave. And I think I had just gone through this like huge transformation. And I was only having a very short mat leave, and I was kind of stressing about going back to work and just thinking to myself, I've got such an important person now that needs me. And I'd felt like work was stagnating for a little bit. And I was like, if I'm going to go back and do all of this work, it has to be for something. I've got somebody very important that wants me at home, and this has to mean something if I'm going to work and leaving her. And so, I was thinking, like, how can we promote the business? And certainly at that time, we just broken into the bespoke jewelry world. We'd been doing a Demi-Fine up until that point, and then we broke into bespoke, and it was growing organically, just like so wonderfully. And I was like, people clearly love our bespoke work. Like, what can we do to promote that? And that's when I thought, like, actually, the best way to promote it is working with somebody influential. What if we were to, work with some amazing talents in the UK and do a bespoke ring for them, film the entire process, which feels like often such an intimidating kind of behind closed doors process. So we kind of shine a light on that. Yep. And at the same time, film the ring kind of being made, designed, so they can see that our expertise, and, highlight the craftsmanship of the people working in the jewelry quarter that we use. So it just felt like this incredible opportunity. And it felt like not just this like icky, here's a pair of earrings.
Yeah, it's not just gifting.
Yeah, it's not. It felt like there was an opportunity as well for me to kind of meet these people that I really admire, get to know them, and actually,
is that why you did it?
Yeah, say again.
Is that why you did it?
Yeah, exactly. It was such a vanity,
self-esteem. How can I make that happen?
Real vanity project.
Yeah,
Leonardo DiCaprio's on the hit
how
list.
can I make that happen?
But yeah, you would then form a kind of a real relationship with them. And then also they're creating something that they want and that they'll wear for a really long time. Very fortunately, one of my friends, a girl called Kerry, she's a talent agent, and she's from Birmingham as well. And she was also going through a little bit of a transition. So we met up for a coffee, and I was like, I've got this idea. And she was like, yeah, let's do it. She was like, I know a few people, we can chat and see if they might want to do this, but it sounds great. They get to design a dream ring. Who wouldn't want to do that? It's not super high cost to you. You're not just there being like, here's tens of thousands of pounds. Can you just wear our jewelry? And, and then they've got a piece that they'll wear forever and ever. I think that was another really important thing is kind of, I had one person in my network, which was Kerry. Like you said earlier in our discussion, I don't live in London. I don't have natural connections with, lots of influential people. But Kerry, I always laugh. Did you ever see those like clips from like Lady Gaga when she did A Star Is Born? And she kept on saying the same thing. She was like, you just need...
Yeah. Repeating the same story.
Yeah. She's like, you just need one person in a room to believe in you. But for me,
that's what you needed.
Kerry was my Bradley Cooper. She believed in me. And, it's like, it's quite hard to come like knocking at the door when you're just a girl from Birmingham who doesn't have an influential family or connection or anything like that. But Kerry, she's really good actually. She's very much like, she doesn't really care about all that faff and, glamour. She's very down to earth. And she was like, yeah. So anyway, long story short, she helped me out. And the first person we did was Charlotte Olympia. And then we did some amazing people, Morgane Lay, who's an amazing photographer, Raven Smith, who obviously is a brilliant Vogue journalist and writer. And, it kind of snowballed from that point, because then one person saw that, okay, their friend had done it, and then someone that they knew had done it. And then we did Camille Charrier, which was absolutely incredible. And, Laura Jackson, now we've done, worked with Laura. Pandora Sykes, so many amazing people. And so, it was that one person in the room believing in what I had thought we could do that's now kind of snowballed into this trust among some incredible people.
It's such a great idea and great choices of really interesting, slightly left field, but still influential, successful, entrepreneurial, really brilliant choice, a brilliant selection. And I think that sort of leaning into that sort of artistic side is really good as well. Just those types of people who care about, probably have similar values aligned with your brand, but they're still really varied as well. So you made individual rings for each of those people in the series that is ongoing, and you invested what you would have been spending on paid social, just might as well just be throwing money out the window into something that feels really authentic and really real and allows for that kind of proper depth of like opening that window into your brand and your world. And like you say, different parts of it as well, like the makers and the city of Birmingham. And I think that's such an authentic marketing endeavor.
It felt really valuable. I think that's it. They say the price is what you pay, but the value is what you get. And I think it felt rich in terms of like substance and value. And I think the people that we worked with saw the value in it as well. Yeah, kind of refreshing thing that's not, it doesn't feel like this super transactional thing, which, I don't love that whole side of this industry.
Did it feel scary? Were you scared about taking that sort of leap?
No, I don't think so. I felt really excited because, the people, like you said, that we were working with, they're really interesting people. And actually in my mind, God, why wouldn't you want to know what is in Pandora Sykes's brain when coming down to design a ring? I want to know what her
I want to know that. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I want to know what her dream ring is. I want to know what everybody's jewelry style is, because it's so individual and it's so shaped by past experiences.
It's really intimate.
Well. It's really intimate. And like Raven Smith, his consultation was so funny. Originally he wanted I think he settled on Raven Smith's ring, but originally he wanted Raven fucking Smith going around.
Engraved around the edge.
Yeah, engraved.
Nice.
And actually, although the original brief was like a Jurassic Park themed ring, and I was like, it was just so fun. It was really, really fun. So yeah, I didn't feel scared. And also the people that filmed it is a team that we've worked with. Josh Shinner, who's a amazing photographer. We work with him for all of our campaigns. So I felt really at ease with them.
And so that kind of highlights not the move away from Demi-Fine, because obviously Demi-Fine is still a core part of your business, but you also parallel you sell fine jewellery. So you make engagement rings and bridal, and you've got your thriving bespoke business. Was that just a natural evolution to move into fine jewellery? Because I know a lot of jewellers are worried about either selling both types of jewellery because the price points are so wildly different. And they worry, I think, about any sort of confusion to the customer. Did you feel confident that your customers would be along for the ride?
Yeah, it did come really organically. I had friends that, wanted me to design their engagement ring. And it felt very natural because obviously that Art Deco style lends itself so wonderfully to bespoke engagement, wedding, etc. To be honest, to this day, I do worry that it is confusing because you don't see that many people doing it. It feels very kind of natural that we do it. And I feel we've just redone the website and we've kind of separated the two divisions quite clearly, where you've got that shop section.
I was going to mention that. It's very clear. But I think the division that it is engagement and bridal and bespoke, and then the Demi-Fine collection pieces is very, very clear. I don't think that it's confusing to the customer for those reasons.
You don't see a lot of brands doing both. I really the only brand that I can ever really reference, which is lovely alignment, is Tiffany.
Well, where they do, exactly. People forget that.
Yeah, they've got that silver, obviously like wildly commercial silver division. And then, they go into the highest of the high jewelry. But I think the way that we've managed to do it is because actually our focus, what you were talking about how some people kind of really focus on sustainability or pigeonhole themselves into something. I think, we have always been about this idea of craftsmanship and design complexity, like intelligent design. And obviously with this kind of generational heritage behind us and generational expertise. And so I think because those are our kind of pillars, somebody will trust us when buying a £200 ring, and somebody will trust us when buying a £20,000 ring. I think the key has very much been on the design style and, our commitment to craftsmanship, really. And I think because those are what we've kind of hung our hat on, that does allow us to bridge those two worlds.
It does. And I think that's the power of really owning a niche in the market as well. Because when you're so secure in your design language, and your whole aesthetic, when that's really like the super clear to the client, you can be a bit more experimental, ironically, because you're safe within the confines of the brand that you've created. So when you look at your engagement ring collection, there are beautiful signature details that I recognize from the brand echoed in the fine jewellery pieces. So it makes perfect sense to the customer. And I think also in terms of the specific customer from an age demographic, I imagine that, as you say, it was a natural progression for you to design for your friends' engagement rings. Fans of the brand who have been collecting and buying pieces over the years can now buy into the engagement and bridal sector as well, which just makes perfect sense to me.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'll do divorce rings soon. But yeah, I think, like I said, this whole brand is very much like a kind of journey brand. And, like you said, it was my friends that started that bespoke process. So they've matured with the brand as well as me. And funnily that you say about this kind of signature style coming through, I'm obviously wearing my engagement ring here, which is the inspiration behind our buckle,
buckles. I love
engagement ring style. And if you look on your olive ring, you have those design elements too, with that kind of use of negative space and little kind of baguette cuts around the center stone. So yeah, like you said, and it's quite nice because any of the big bolder styles, I can put those into the Demi-Fine collection. And then anything that feels a bit too engagement-y for Demi-Fine, we've got a home for that in Fine.
I think that ambition to broaden the scope is really important. For brand growth as well. And I must say that I really love the new website and the new branding. And I'm really pleased that you're finally just using your own name as the name of the business, going from V Jewellery, which is fine, and then V by Laura Vann, which is kind of in the middle, waffle, to now finally Laura Vann. That's great because, you should give yourself the credit by having your name in the name of the business. It's the final piece of the puzzle, I think.
I think
for
so.
you, and it looks fantastic. And it's really clear, as I was saying, on your navigation when you land on your page, the two sort of parts of the jewellery price point that you lean into. But I'm really pleased that you're giving that kind of equal weight, the engagement and the bespoke, or the bridal and the bespoke, because I do think that you do that so well, and it does show your ambition. I mean, because you don't have to set up, bespoke, a whole bespoke situation, which isn't easy. You're meeting clients in person, and, you could have sat comfortably in your Demi-Fine business. But I really think that shows your ambition and your intention for the brand.
Yeah, it's that. And also like, I really love doing bespoke. I think obviously what we were saying earlier about how the kind of core part of our business has to be really commercial, and it has to sell as well as looking good. You know, I think if I was just doing that, I'd feel a little bit like there was something missing. And actually, you know, especially because I don't see that end customer, you know, we don't have a retail store. Yeah. So I'm kind of often designing and just looking at metrics and see, you know, what's worked, what's not worked. Okay, what do I, you know, want to play around with? There's an element of creativity, but there's also quite a big element of commerciality. And actually, there's nothing nicer than having two super happy people, or one happy person, depending on if they're designed together, coming in and giving you just like this random brief, but they love your style. So it's not like you feel, you know, not aligned with the product. And you design one piece and you focus so much on that one piece, and you get to use beautiful stones and gemstones and get things hand cut, and you're not designing to kind of hit a target or something like that. So actually, like, doing that bespoke side kind of keeps me really joyful in this work as well.
Yeah, it must be a nice counter to working on the more commercial side for you, but you must be very busy. Especially as a mother, it's I know what it's like. It's you're taking a lot on. And your bespoke studio and work and offices are in Birmingham. So I do think that is, I would just quickly like to touch upon the fact that your brand isn't London centric, which is a great thing. There's so much focus on London as the kind of center of the world when it comes to fashion and jewellery in the UK. And for those people who aren't from the UK, Birmingham is a city north of London, a big city with a big jewellery heritage. But why is that so sort of especially important to you to champion I mean, it's pretty obvious, but to champion your hometown?
Well, I think I can't be something I'm not. And I think it's so important to just kind of own who you are, because actually it makes it more interesting for people. I think for a lot of people, they're open-minded and they appreciate something different. But also, like, the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham has just been awarded World Craft City status for its contribution to the jewellery industry. And it's one of only 8 cities in Europe to receive that accolade of a World Craft City. Birmingham produces 40% of the UK's jewellery output. It's home to the largest assay office in the world.
It's a big player.
Yeah. And it's pretty as well. It's really pretty. You know, it's a really beautiful area full of kind of old cobbled streets and beautiful kind of old buildings. And, you know, behind those kind of old rickety doors, there's somebody that's like big, you know, weathered old hands polishing or cutting down a tiny little gemstone to fit in a tiny ring or something. And there's so much specialism here. So there's nothing not to be proud of.
I think it's really important to lean in, like you say, to what's authentic to you, and not London isn't the center of the world.
I'll never know kind of like what that kind of alignment has kind of held me back from. I'm sure there are opportunities that I'm not kind of considered for because I'm not in the swim in London. But yeah, I think for every opportunity that I miss, there's another one to be gained.
So just to wind down, if you were to look back over your business career so far, were there any key decisions that had the sort of biggest impact on your business?
I think just putting myself out there has been so fortunate. Like doing that exhibition at the Saatchi Gallery, just going and doing it. And then we got into Fortnum's. And then I went to, I think we did London Fashion Week designer showrooms. And I just went there. I didn't exhibit for the first time. The first year I went there, I just like went as a attendee, and I got chatting to Beanie Major, who at that time had a blog called In Detail. And, you know, we got chatting, and then relationships evolved with her. And, you know, she introduced me to some amazing people. And then we did the designer showrooms, and I was part of an amazing showroom called Rina Sala PR alongside Roche from Alighieri, and also Anna at Completed Works. I remember she would be at the designer showrooms. Rachel Boston would be at the designer showrooms. So, you know, it was just kind of like being like, okay, I'm going to talk to somebody and go to this talk and talk to them like a normal human being and form a genuine relationship. I think that's kind of been the defining thing about how I like to run businesses, or my business, sorry, is forming genuine relationships. Like you know, we've known each other for 12 years. And I think like, you know, I think people can tell when you're genuine and when you're authentic. Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question. I can't.
No, it does. It does.
On a tangent.
So would that be your gold dust piece of advice to give to other jewelers starting out, just to try and get involved, I guess, like put yourself out there?
Definitely put yourself out there, and you know, every kind of like thing that I've done that I think, oh, maybe, you know, that didn't get that desired outcome. So for example, we've shown the collection at Paris Fashion Week. I think we've been there like 5 times, and very rarely do you actually kind of pick up an account. But one person, that I met whilst I was out there is this amazing woman called Ellen, and she has a fashion brand called Stylin. And I saw that I really love Stylin. It's a Swedish brand. And I saw that they were showing in a showroom nearby, and I just popped in. I had no idea who Ellen was or anything like that. And I popped in and I was like, I need to see this brand in person. And I went in, and there was this beautiful woman sat at the desk next to all the products. And I was like, I'm not a buyer, I'm not pressed, but I love this brand so much. And it ended up that she was Ellen, the founder, and we got chatting. And then from there, you know, she invited us to do a pop. Well, we formed a wonderful, genuinely like amazing relationship. And then she invited me to Stockholm to do a pop-up at her beautiful store there. And then as a result of that, we've just launched into NK, which is this incredible department store in Stockholm. And so, yeah, like
that's
probably
great.
Isn't that crazy? And isn't it like an annoying piece of advice, because you can't replicate that, because you never know who you're going to meet. But it's about this idea of like never tunnel visioning on what you think you want. Like I remember I've focused on like, I want to get into this one particular retailer. Why won't they take us? Why won't they take us? Blah, 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 blah. And I just had this tunnel vision, and we just have had no after no after no. And then, you know what? Now I've just kind of been like, you know what? It's a big wide world out there. And so I'm now kind of like opening myself up to all of these opportunities, and like letting the opportunities kind of come to me. And when you're not focused on this one thing that's not serving you, you then are way more kind of receptive to kind of other opportunities. So I think that's really important. And then the other thing that I wanted to say that Ellen has taught me is she's been running her brand Stylin now for like 20 years, maybe more. And she's now seeing this incredible success. And I think I speak to a lot of younger kind of people coming into the market, or they might have, you know, had their business for a few years. This is not a short sprint. This is a long, long journey. And I think just enjoying that journey, once you kind of can get to that point where, like, yes, it's a hell of a lot of hard work at the beginning. It really, really is. And you have to work hard for, like, I would say the first 5-10 years is really hard. But I look at Ellen and I'm like, you've been doing this for 20 years, and she just takes it in her stride, and she takes things with ease. And I've just been, I really admire her. I really look up to her, and she gives me a lot of inspiration. Actually, when I'm in my 40s, you know, maybe that's when my time will come, or maybe it'll be when I'm 50, or, you know, it's a long, long road, and it's about the journey and enjoying it whilst you're on that.
That's such great advice. I love it. And I also love how you talk to people, like you say, like they're just real people, and generally nice people are interested in other nice people doing interesting things, I find. There's a lot of people who are scared about, you know, approaching someone in the industry, or, you know, even just having a chat. But look how far it's got you in your business. just by being open, as you say, and talking to other interesting people. And you do it so well. So congratulations on everything. And thank you so much for coming and talking to me. It's been such a pleasure. And I am, as I said, such a huge fan of not only your jewelry, but also your entrepreneurial ambition and your determination. It's really, really inspiring. So thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you, Kate. And thank you for, years and years of wonderful support. I really appreciate it.